and welcome to Security Insights, where the best practices of cybersecurity meet the real-world workplace. I'm Chris Gettle, and today we have a special guest joining me from Securin CEO Ram Movva, who from Securin, who has been a longtime partner with Ivanti. And welcome, Ram, to the show. Now, our first question really is going to be more about the relationship between Ivanti and Securin. So Securin's been an Ivanti partner providing vulnerability intelligence to Ivanti's risk-based vulnerability management and Ivanti Neurons for patch management solutions. But Ram, your partnership with RiskSense actually predates after the acquisition occurred. Tell us a little bit about the journey that you've been on with RiskSense and now Ivanti, and how that partnership interacts with you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Chris, for having me. Truly being honored here. RiskSense, I'm a co-founder of RiskSense and also the first investor in RiskSense. We started off this journey with an intention of solving a specific problem in cybersecurity. It was all by research and applied research. That is how we got started. And RiskSense was doing a platform play, and I was more focused on how do we enable customers from that platform? How do we enable services? How do we increase adoption? That's how the partnership started off. And more RiskSense didn't have any presence in India, and I facilitated them setting up operations and stuff like that because it was a common problem between both nations. If you look at it, that was the whole intent. And then after Ivanti acquired RiskSense, we continued that relationship because Ivanti was more than welcome, and everybody who is using RiskSense platform today, Neurons platform, need adoption and need customers to start using the platform, leveraging what it has to offer. Security solution is not something that's easy for people to adopt. You've got to be an expert in security or network or application development. So adoption is difficult. It's not a typical ticketing system, or not an airline booking system, or a customer management or a bill pay system, right? It's not very intuitive. You need specialized skill. So that is where we really partnered with them, and we started offering adoption of the platform. And part of our journey was to continue to solve problems doing research. So we continue to invest our time and effort in increasing the vulnerable intelligence product that we've built, which is being used by Ivanti to prioritize vulnerabilities. Along that journey, we also acquired a company out of DARPA and Naval Intelligence from ASU about 2.5 years ago. And they filed for a lot of patents, and we own those patents, and we got those awarded just about 6 months ago. That is truly about how do you prioritize vulnerabilities? How do you choose which vulnerability to fix first? They were founders who actually had ML and AI algorithms for each and every specific type of vulnerability. So this was a company that raised over $12 million from grants from Naval Intelligence, and they didn't have a go-to-market strategy, and it fitted very well into our BI platform. And that's being rapidly used by many customers of ours, OEMing into their products for risk-based vulnerability management.
Awesome. Now, you touched on this a little bit already, but there's a lot of specialization that really goes into having to manage that end-to-end security process. Most organizations, they've got vulnerability scanning capabilities today. Some of those vulnerability scanners may have some prioritization capabilities built into them. Several even have the CISA known exploited vulnerabilities list, which you could say is a very basic form of risk-based vulnerability management, right? But Securin, you're taking it a step further and really providing a lot more vulnerability intelligence and a living kind of scoring algorithm versus a lot of the static approaches that are out there. CVSS scores are a bit static in their nature. They don't take real world risk into account. The same with vulnerability severities. Like, I could go back and look at the last several years of vulnerabilities that were 0 days. They were actively being exploited before they were resolved. Take Microsoft just as a single vendor. You could see that last year they had over 20 vulnerabilities that were 0 days. Only one of those was rated critical. Most of them were important, and there were even a moderate or two in that mix. So, how does a vulnerability intelligence platform like RBVM really help organizations to better prioritize and understand what those exposures really mean and how to respond to them?
Yeah, very, very interesting question. And it's a very technical question. I really appreciate that. Um, if you look at enterprises, they have hundreds and thousands of vulnerabilities. The whole concept of what to fix now, what to fix later, is the reason why prioritization wasn't put in place, or that's why we conceptualized that. When you have so many vulnerabilities, you probably even might have 2000 critical vulnerabilities. 2000 is a lot to handle as well. So in that 2000, how do you prioritize that? So in those 2000, we associate as which vulnerabilities have the potential to have a ransomware associated with that. Next is what are the vulnerabilities which have potential ransomware and a malware or a remote code execution that can be done, or which vulnerability can be used to escalate privileges of a user from a local user to a super admin user so that they can spawn any kind of processes or FTP protocols and stuff like that. So we categorize these vulnerabilities based on this, and that's how we prioritize it for customers. So with this IP, what we acquired, where the founders were tasked to predict when an enemy would attack the United States. They served the Afghan war. So they used the same ML algorithms which they used back at the war, like 15, 20 years ago in cyber after they came back to school as professors. Which vulnerability will be weaponized based on whether it's a network related, application related, OS related. So they had their own way of analyzing it and they would predict that. Part of that is they also went and searched deep and dark web. So they looked at different languages across the globe and normalize that to English, translate that, and then come back and give a rating. Hey, this is the expertise this region has. This is the expertise this region has, whether it's coding related, application related, OS related, and potential uh, being weaponized. And the beauty of our platform, which you and our customers use, is we actually get the predicted score and say, hey, this is going to be weaponized in the next 30 days or 60 days. So please be aware and see if you can have a mitigation if you don't have a patch, or if there's a patch, go ahead and apply for it. And we also provide the raw data in the platform, in which language it discussed, what are the date timestamps, who are the actors who discussed it. All of that information is transparent to our customers once you log in. So it is fact and data based, and based on the data is when we recommend. And whenever these CISA kevs, you say, they come out and say, hey, this is something what we're seeing active happen, so go ahead and patch. We come back in a day or so and say, hey, we called these out 30 days ago or 15 days ago, or sometimes even 90 days ago. So we were
Right.
always ahead of the curve, even for the CISA kevs that are out there.
Absolutely. Um, and I actually just saw, like minutes ago, I saw another CISA KEV email go out. So they've just been adding 3 more to their list. And
Mhm.
I would guess that, yeah, if we go searching for those, we'll see that those vulnerabilities were already in the list from Securin.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so vulnerability exposure has been expanding. The analysts that I've been talking to are now basically saying there's 5 attack surfaces that we really need to be concerned about. And right now, we've just been talking about one of those, the kind of internal vulnerability infrastructure, right? Um, so there's cloud configuration, there's user or identity, there's also data, but there's another one that's actually kind of, think of it as just the flip side of that coin. You've got the internal vulnerability exposure. You've also got the external vulnerability exposure. And this is something that Securin actually, and again, through our partnership, we've got a joint go to market with an enterprise attack surface management solution. Talk to me a little bit about what that helps you to get. What does that external attack surface help me with?
Yep. So very, very good question. This was a question that was asked 10 years ago when I was going and pitching risk sense to customers in Middle East or India, right? So they say, yeah, great, we have this scan solution, we have this endpoint, we're doing our periodic scans, we understand that. But truly, it's internal. What is it from outside? So we wanted to map an outside perspective to an inside perspective. So you might NAT and have a different IP for an asset which is inside, which is exposed outside. What is that asset inside that can be touched from outside? So an outside in view and an inside out view is exactly what we're trying to facilitate and bridge. So you will have to know that when we run typical ASM scans on our customers, they might have some shadow IT they thought they retired, or they might have some environments that were open due to remote work for some testing that is exposed, or users might go log in or might register for some conferences or something like. Typically, they end up using the same emails and passwords when they're registering for conferences. So if that third party vendor gets compromised, most likely your ID is compromised. Today, everybody is trying to do phishing attacks, spear phishing. With AI coming into place, it's so focused. You might even get deceived that it's a real email that's coming within an organization or from a partner. So this external attack surface is just not what I'm talking about, your external assets, but it is entirely about the organization, any subsidiary that you might have acquired. You might have done some integrations, and for the facilitation of integration, you might have opened a few things and not. So this is a continuous thing, and you must continuously have an external attack surface view apart from what you're doing from an internal attack surface view, and both should be correlated and then prioritized.
Right. So now I can see both what the attackers are able to see publicly, and also if somebody is inside my environment, what additional vulnerabilities would be available to them.
Yep.
So we talked a little bit about ransomware already, and you're getting a purview of what vulnerabilities are tied to ransomware. In the market in general, what is Securin seeing from a ransomware market trend?
So ransomware has always been there. Now it's become more easy. Today, there's a service that the bad guys have launched called Ransomware as a Service, where they've packaged a specific set of vulnerabilities with specific set of encryption algorithms, and they're just selling it at a low cost, where you don't have to be technical. All you have to do is have bots have these run and scan the internet, and anything that you find, it'll start pushing these payloads out there. There are ready-made packages where with email addresses for you to fish. If somebody clicks on it, this gets, so it's no longer manual. It's completely automated, and that is the trend going forward. How do we see that from a security perspective? Continuous assessments, risk assessments, trying to understand what are the typical ransomwares that are happening within your vertical, within your same business entities. How are they perceiving it? So this is a very proactive approach of how you're supposed to look at these things.
Got it. So that basically it's kind of the low-hanging fruit. If you eliminate vulnerabilities tied to ransomware first, you're eliminating one of your biggest threats to your organization very quickly.
Yep. So you have to constantly keep understanding who the threat actors are, where are they coming from, and what are the vulnerabilities they're targeting, and regular risk assessments, third-party validations are important.
From a industry trends perspective, in general, we're seeing an increase in the number of exploited vulnerabilities, software exploits in general. We're also seeing an increase in the number of zero-day vulnerabilities being exploited. And many organizations right now are trying to figure out how are they going to catch up to going from once a month, response and maybe an out of band kind of approach for 0 days to really truly getting to a continuous vulnerability remediation process. What are you seeing from the Securin customer base side? Are you seeing similar trends? What are your customers trying to strive for?
So our customers are, like you said, those 4 attack surfaces, 5 attack surfaces, right? That is the trend all our customers are going to. One is continuous. Most of them are mature. So instead of doing a period in time check on their internal or external, they're relying on continuous scanning of their internal assets, external assets, and continuous remediation, automated patching solutions. That's what they're looking at. And now, when you do an automated periodic scans, you automatically have it prioritized based on a vulnerability intelligence product, and that is going to help you prioritize your patch as well. So that is a cycle everybody's following. If you go back in time, maybe 25 years ago, when antivirus was new to all of us, we never had it run 24 by 7. We ran it
Right.
late in the night when the system was available. It didn't hog up a lot of memory. So that's the trend. I see this being continuous, and I see this remediation automatic patching also being continuous. And another aspect is they're trying to go cloud configuration and also developer centric. So they're introducing security into CI CD, into DevSecOps. So they want to look at how do you arrest these vulnerabilities even before they get into runtime. So a developer will not be allowed to check in code if he's introducing a known vulnerability or using a library or a third party software that has some kind of vulnerabilities. So that is another thing. So they are trying to see if they can fix it at the root. So apart from a continuous program, this is also going to complement it. You're going to reduce a lot of effort by pushing something into runtime. And it saves a lot of cost. Going through all QA testing and then pushing it into runtime and then doing a security check continuous and coming back and asking the developer to fix, that's such an expensive process. So they're
Mhm.
looking at shifting left, trying to put the burden on engineering products. So it's more collaborative. Before, IT teams were working in silos and engineering teams were working in silos, security teams in silos. All mature customers are bringing these three teams together and they're trying to work together to see if they can look at all these attack surfaces like what you talked about.
Absolutely. And yeah, we at Ivanti, we've signed the CISA Secure by Design pledge. We've got a very active process of, as you said, shifting left and making even looking at the libraries included in our products all be a more continuous kind of update process. I think the industry as a whole learned a lot from Log4j. We figured out there was a pretty big challenge of really trying to handle all of those third-party library vulnerabilities that were out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I signed the pledge along with Jeff.
Oh, that's right. You were there. I think there were just over 70 companies
Companies.
that were
That's right.
together
Yeah,
at RSA this year to sign that pledge together, right?
that's right.
That had to be a pretty interesting room of vendors.
All the big ones.
Absolutely. All right, so I saved it till the end, but I didn't want you to think that you were going to get out of today's conversation without talking about AI.
Absolutely.
We did make it till the end of the conversation, though. So, our final question for you for today. Um, AI has certainly made a big impact on the market. We're seeing a lot of use of generative AI to try to develop or generate code, even generate malware. We've even seen research, like out of the University of Illinois most recently, where researchers are using AI to actively look for vulnerabilities and even create exploits for those. That's one challenge that we're seeing. Now, the other one that I'm very interested to hear from you on is what about the AI technologies we're adopting? What has Securin seen so far from a vulnerability perspective, and more importantly, from an exploit perspective? Are any of those libraries being weaponized? Are threat actors talking about them? What type of activity is going on in that space?
Yep. So, yeah, very interesting question. This is a question that everybody asks. So, when you say AI, what you said is, if you can summarize it, AI for cybersecurity, cybersecurity for AI. So,
Yep.
when I say AI for cybersecurity, what we're that is what we're practicing. The company that we acquired 2.5 years ago was using ML and AI to predict the weaponization of a vulnerability based on the various different models that we have. That's exactly so. If it's Microsoft, if it's Adobe, so for different vendors, we have so many algorithms and we have so many AIs. That's what we have patents on. So we're using that to predict when the weaponization would happen. So that is putting customers ahead of time before something happens. They patch it or they mitigate it. The other ways of looking at it is some of these models are and can be used by bad guys for poisoning. They might give in bad data so that it might spit out wrong information for you. So something where what are the software that are used in building the AI? So AI software bill of materials. So what is it that is constituting to make that AI? That has to be public, that has to be tested. So if your AI model is tested, that is when you should go ahead and customize it for what you're using it. Another aspect is you have to understand the bad guys are leveraging AI also. Today, when I talked about the phishing attacks, right? So they're all mostly so well crafted using AI, and bad guys are
Yep.
able to take advantage of that and get straight to the point. So you can use AI both sides, and companies have the onus on them to make sure that the AI that they're rolling out has been tested. The software inside the AI to build that is being tested before it's rolled out.
So it sounds like we've got a little bit of a challenge as an industry coming up on us here pretty already, in fact,
Yeah.
of really trying to wrap our brains around the exposure that the AI technologies we're using is now placing in our environments. We've seen some less security related ways to take advantage of that so far. Everything from getting a brand new truck for $1 to getting your plane tickets for free. But yeah, I guess if you were to throw out a prediction there, do you think that there's going to be a threat actor who will find a vulnerability that they can actively exploit in an AI technology in the near future?
So, yes and no to that. Yes, absolutely. There is a risk always. But how well are you covered in your continuous mitigation process is the solution for that. You got to be on top of things. You have to bring teams together, collaborate together. 0 days are always a challenge, and but how quickly do you understand? So AI can also be used to for incident response, for predicting what is going to happen. So these technologies are going to counterbalance each other.
Excellent. Well, Ram, thank you for your time today. I know as a CEO of a company, you're a very busy man, so we really do appreciate you taking time out to join our podcast episode this month. And thank you. We really appreciated your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris, for having me. Really appreciate your time.